Hello.
I would identify under probably bisexual to be more convenient. I think if I was to go deeper with it, maybe pansexuality. There's always been that underlying queerness, but it's pretty much just been, if I like the way it looks, I'm going to try to sleep with it.
I don't like the term pansexual because anytime I get that, I either get, oh, so you fuck kitchenware? Which happens a lot less now, which is nice. Or I get like, oh, what's pansexuality? Because nobody seems to know what that means.
The concept of being attracted to the mind and the soul rather than the physicality that comes with it. So the gender expression doesn't really matter. The parts, so to speak, are just that. They're just parts. So if you fall in love with, a woman, a man, somebody who was born a woman but identifies a man, or anywhere in between on that spectrum, you're not looking for something specific physically. You're just looking more for what's compatible emotionally or mentally, intellectually, pretty much the personality first.
It removes the thought that there's only, two genders, that there can't be anything in between, that there's this sexual binary. And pansexuality, it's the entire spectrum. It's everything in between the two or on the other side of the two. It's just the whole spectrum of everything. And I don't like identifying as bisexual because there's a lot of bi-erasure in the queer community, and just from straight people who don't understand what bisexuality is, where it's like, I get the whole comment of like, oh wait, so if you're bi but you're going out with a girl, that means you're straight now, right? No, that's not what that means. That doesn't get erased just because I have a fiance who's a female with female parts. So I like to use queer because it's a blanket statement. I am what I am.
Once upon a time, I was 13 and life sucked, as it mostly does when you're 13. Especially being a woman, there's definitely that pressure. Like, as soon as you turn 13, it's like, whoa, you're a woman, and everything's changing and everything's freaky, and you're supposed to be, wearing makeup, doing this, doing that, doing this guy, doing that guy, doing this girl, who knows. But, my first relationship experience was a very negative one.
The first girl I was ever sexually active with, alright, there's not really a such thing as, like, normal sex, but, like, everything with her had to be so much extra. Everything had to be, whips and, we tried blood play, and I thought that was going to be something I was into, and I realized, nope, I'm going to pass out and puke the sight of my own blood, and that was terrible.
I think a lot of the reason why I ended up in that abusive relationship, and several thereafter, was because I was looking for somebody who was authoritative and seemed confident. I just didn't know what to look for. So I think the kink community, specifically the BDSM community, really helped shape my sexuality and myself as a person, because now I can figure out, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is how I become strong enough to accept it.
Since then, now that I've been with my fiance and everything, and through getting into kink with her, I think this is the only positive sexual relationship I've ever had, period. This is the only sexual relationship I've been in where I feel like we both have mutual respect, and
whether I want it to be where I'm in a submissive position, or if I take on a dominant position, or if I take on multiple partners, it's definitely encouraged me to take power in my own sexuality.
She was asking me what I am, if I'm a dom or a sub, and I'd never really been asked that question before. I'd never really been one or the other. I just kind of was.
Being a part of the kink community, I think that definitely shaped the way that I see sex as being part of power and vice versa. because, of course, when you're submissive to somebody, you're giving them the power to, break these thresholds that you previously set and to act in a way that isn't polite, so to speak. However, the only reason why that would be happening, at least in a safe and sane consensual relationship, is because your submissive is letting you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's always going to be some sort of struggle with power. For many people, it's a turn on to have more power. For my fiance especially, that's his thing. I'm able to give that to him. So while the physical sex will always have a power struggle there, I think that there's definitely an empowerment in yourself to not only be able to dominate somebody, but to allow yourself to be dominated, because that not only takes trust in the other person, but trust in yourself that you're looking out for yourself and you have your best interest at heart, and that if needed, you can speak up for yourself.
I absolutely prefer being the dominant force. I like having that sort of power and everything, and I mean, there's definitely a bit of a misconception with the power balance between a dom and a sub. It's not so much that, one person has all the power and the person, the dominant, has all the power, everything that they say goes. Because in actuality, the dom only has illusion of power. It's the submissive that has all the power, because they're the one who lets the dom have that power in the first place. The submissive gets to choose who their dominant partner is, they get to choose, alright, these are my lines, you can't, these are the things I'm comfortable with, these are the things I'm not comfortable with. They're the ones who have the power, and, if the dom goes too far, and the submissive, if you use a safe word or, anything like that, you tap out or something, the dom has to obey that, in a healthy relationship.
BDSM is something you're into or you're not into. You don't sign a contract one day and decide that that's when you're into it. The contract doesn't read, you have to do these things. The contracts that I've seen, the contracts that I used in my work were, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. These are what you can do, and if you do anything else, your ass is out on 32nd Street and I'm calling the police. I'll do it in leather, I don't care.
I get to marry this. Women are definitely judged a lot more harshly than men. But that's not to say that men aren't also harshly judged. It's definitely a different judgment.
Figgity fuck yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're a woman, you're expected to be a saint and a sinner and a whore and a mother and a wife, and you're expected to be all these things at once, and then God help you if you do all of them at once, or if you don't do any of them, or if you cherry pick what you're gonna do. There's absolutely pressure as a woman. There's this strange pressure to use your sexuality as long as it doesn't make people uncomfortable. So if you're a lesbian, that's great. If you're a lesbian in a porno and you're making out so that, straight guys and in-between guys and people all over the place can jack off to it, but God forbid you hold your lover's hand in public.
There's a lot of pressure on guys to be, the big macho stud and everything, and if you're not, just constantly fucking everything that moves and you're constantly going after this body count, then, there's something wrong with you. Probably just gay or something, but, even then, there's tons of gay dudes that are racking up the fucking bodies, and there's no problem with that.
When it comes to being promiscuous, the word itself, promiscuous, it's just ridiculous. It sounds stupid, rolling off the tongue, really. But, you're expected to be experienced and to make your partner happy and be able to provide the sexual experience without ever having a sexual experience. Because if you have too much sexual experience, nobody's gonna want you. Because you're loose, or you're slutty, or you're a leper. I don't know. I still haven't quite figured it out. It's probably a combination of all of those things, but when you're a woman, you are definitely held to a different standard than men.
There's definitely some societal pressure about, any guy that's, has any sort of feelings with sex or anything like that. And I'm definitely someone who's very emotionally connected. One of the many things I've been called a fairy boy for, which, that's not what makes me gay. Like, me liking dick makes me gay, not me having emotions. That makes me a normal fucking human being.
When I first started being a paid submissive, I told a very good friend of mine, and to this day I still consider him my best friend, but I told him what I was doing, and his first response was, "Are you fucking kidding me?" No, I'm not fucking kidding you. Let me whip out this cash and be real obnoxious right now. And, the look on his face, I asked him, "What, is that a problem?" And he said, "Well, aren't you afraid somebody's gonna find out? Only if they're not gonna pay me." I mean, and it seemed, he just kept harping on the fact that, what if somebody finds out? Okay, what if somebody does find out? I get more business. And I guess he was looking at it more as, it's something to be ashamed of, it's something to keep secret, it's something that I shouldn't have been doing. And I think that was so funny, because this is the same guy who would come home from class, or he would come home from, being out in the city for the day, and he would tell me about how he made out with this girl, and he stuck a finger in this one, and he stuck like 6 fingers in that one, and his tongue's been all over Manhattan, and I'm supposed to be happy for him. Meanwhile, my financial endeavor is not allowed to be spoken about, or, if my partner at the time came over, it was all very secretive, hush-hush. There was to be no evidence, no speaking, no mentioning of any sort of sexuality.
If you're not having sex with anybody, you're a prude. And if you're having sex with everybody, or anybody at all, you're a slut. And there's no real way to combat that. Where men don't really seem to have that issue, It's not a bad thing if you're a male slut in society, That's not a dirty word.
You're out on the town and you're making out with multiple people that night, you're disgusting. If you're a man and you're making out with multiple people that night, oh, that's great, bro, that's awesome, high fives and fist bumps and whatever else.
If anything, it makes you have some sort of more value, as if a man that isn't having sex with people, just because it's not happening, or maybe their own personal choices, is less of a man. They have less worth into society because they're not doing it with anybody.
While women are often demonized for being too sexual or not being sexual enough, there's no winning. Because then if you're not sexual enough, then you're no fun to be around. And, unfortunately, that sort of paradigm lends itself to the rape culture that we have today, where the first thing you're asked in a police station is, what were you wearing? Were you drinking? Were you flirting? Who the fuck cares? Rape is rape. It seems like such a simple concept, but unfortunately, we have so many social constructs that are in the way that even the most basic concept, such as not sticking your genitals near anybody else without their permission, seems to become this strange gray area.
There's definitely an expectation that it's easy, that, men don't get attached through sex, and, every man has to be a stud, has to just constantly be fucking everything that moves.
It's very toxic, not just to women, but I believe to men too. Because as a woman, I'm pressured to have experience, but not have experience. But as a man, if you're somebody who has experience, you're supposed to get more experience. You're supposed to be, super sexually hungry all the time. If you're a man, but if you're a woman, don't ever talk about it. I like coming too much to not talk about it. The way I've always looked at sexuality in general is somebody's gonna be angry at you about it, and somebody's gonna judge you for it no matter what. You may as well get off anyway. So, if I had anything to say, it would probably just be that.
That's awesome.
Please don't put alcohol in my butthole. I have to work early in the morning. And that's not something I'll be able to recover from very well.
I guess I'm going solo.